Hey, it's Girli. I'm here with Student Music Network talking about my upcoming album. It's just my opinion. The album comes out on the 8th of May and is 12 songs about queer experiences and mental health and politics and feminism and all the beautiful, messy things in between.
This is Alexia with Student Music Network, and we're here today to talk to Girli. I'm going to start with some questions, and then we're going to open the floor for more questions from other stations. So, first up, let's start easy. What are your big three in terms of star signs?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Um, I am a Sagittarius sun and a Sagittarius rising as well, which I'm told I'm not really an astrology girl, but I'm told that's a bit crazy. And then I'm a Pisces moon.
Interesting. I'll let the astrology girlies do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And new album, new hair. The pink is back. Is it like going back to your roots?
Yeah, I mean, I always like have tried to have an element of pink in my hair and my styling. I think for a few years I kind of wanted to try being a blonde, but I had a little bit of pink in there. And then yeah, I think there was like a feeling of, I mean, the dark in my hair is my natural hair color, so there was a feeling of, I guess, wanting to quite literally go back to my roots, but then also that was mirrored in sonically. The album is definitely a lot more, I guess, sort of indie rock than the last one, which was very much super pure pop. So, and I grew up listening to indie, so that kind of felt like a mirroring of sorts. But I just love changing my hair. But the pink always has to stay in some form as like the central motif.
Great that you mentioned the sound because I you mentioned that French pop was a bit of a sound influence, like Zao de Sagazan, if I'm correct.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
What would you say were some of your sonic influences? Were there any artists you listened to?
Yeah, I think I was listening to a lot of stuff that I grew up listening to. I was listening to a lot of more bands, I'd say. Like the last album, I was listening to a bunch of, I guess, like pop girls. I was listening to loads of Kim Petras and Kesha, and that was kind of the vibe. Whereas this time round, I was listening to a lot of Arctic Monkeys and Wolf Alice and Haim and like loads of bands that I remember growing up with and being a teenager and discovering. But then also a lot of it was influenced by my actual friends and musicians who I play with. And we had my friend Chloe, who plays drums with me on tour. She was writing all of the drum parts for the album, and that influenced me as well. So it was cool. Like usually as a pop artist, I'll just write quite in quite an insular way, but it was cool to have other musicians influence it as well.
That is interesting because I read a comment out under Squirm the other day, and it said that every single song that you wrote has been catchy as hell. So, how do you make
Yeah.
everything such an earworm?
I mean, that's a huge compliment. I mean, I think I'm such a pop fan and I love melodies and um I think I'm always, even for me, I feel like one of the central things that makes something pop or have a pop element is that the melody is hooky and catchy and, even in the most punky anti-pop songs, like you'll find elements of pop in there because melodically it's something that people can remember and can identify with and attach to. So I'm that's my favorite. I mean, the lyrics are my favorite part of songwriting, but closely followed by melodies. So yeah, I'm always trying to to make things catchy.
I actually had a question about your lyric writing process. So for Squirm, I think you mentioned that it's about a girl has a crush on her best friend, has a boyfriend. Obviously, you're in an like openly in a queer relationship. That's so cute. I love seeing you two together. So how much of it is just from real experience and how much of it is interpreting queer experiences as a general?
I think, yeah, I write a mix of real experiences and then experiences that I've heard stories about, or you know, I guess things that feel relatable and are sort of dramatized. Like I definitely was writing Squirm, not necessarily about something that's actually happened to me like recently, but something that I've experienced a lot in my life, and the idea of, an a crush that you can't pursue is definitely such a big theme for a lot of queer people. And my biggest song, More Than a Friend, is about that exact feeling. And I really liked the idea of, yeah, writing a song that was, I suppose, more of an aggressive, like punky kind of rocky vibe of that. But I mean, my girlfriend is an artist as well, and she's always writing songs that make people think that we've broken up. And she's like, no, it's not about us, it's about this. So I feel like, yeah, interpreting stories that you've heard or feelings that you have had into things that could be, yeah, fully fleshed stories is like a really fun part of songwriting.
Yeah, well, most best songs come from heartbreaks.
Yeah, so
Does
real.
make sense. Back in Young in like 2018, you had this
Mm.
line about wanting to hide and listening to Madonna. So now, fast forwarding to romanticizing sadness, who's your go-to comfort artist now, and how do you deal with those heavy emotions today?
Oh my gosh. I'd say my go-to comfort artist is probably Amy Winehouse, because I just grew up listening to her. Or Muna. I love Muna. So many Muna songs, so good to cry to. Yeah, I'd say that's my comfort music. Such like different artists. But it'll either be something from nostalgic from childhood, or it'll be something that, yeah, like a new discovery. But I mean, I actually love, a lot of people find this to be kind of like torturous, but I love listening to sad songs when I'm sad. I feel like that feels like the comfort blanket, which I know for a lot of people is like the opposite of what you would want to do, but makes sense for me.
And it's just my opinion. Your full album is coming on the 8th of May. You said that this album is a bit more raw and theatrical than your previous one. So, what did that shift look like visually?
Well, I mean, actually, I'd say I think my last album was more theatrical visually, and then this one feels a bit more like, yeah, I suppose just a little bit more authentic, like bridging the gap a little bit more between just who I am on a day-to-day basis and then what my music project is. And I think like I loved my last album, Matriarchy, was really about dressing up and world building and, stepping on stage as someone kind of different. And I feel like for this album, I really wanted to connect the person who writes all the songs and is me every day, and then the artist and the visual world and the shows. I kind of just wanted it to feel a little bit more androgynous and a little bit more casual and a little bit more punk, I guess. I think I definitely wanted to involve more politics and activism into this album, and instead of, I kind of swapped like wearing a corset for wearing like a slogan t-shirt. That's sort of the vibe. Um, and embraced the fact that I really love wearing jeans on stage.
Okay, I got like three more, and then I'll go to the
Yeah,
open ones.
go for it.
So you've always been politically outspoken, and with Slap on the Wrist, you worked with Eliza Hatch. But how did you approach that story sensibly? Because I feel like obviously it's more of a sensitive topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that song, it was really important to me that um like activism was a huge part of releasing that song because it felt like it felt like it had to be navigated in a really special way because it didn't sort of feel right to put out this song that's about something so heavy and so traumatizing for so many people and not try and involve, okay, how can this song help spread awareness and raise money for charity and actually be part of like a bigger picture of activism. So that's why I wanted to make a music video that felt like like an important, I guess, form of protest in a way and just a way of making people, as well as highlighting how serious the topic is and how depressing it is, I wanted also to make people feel like less alone and, um, and kind of highlight like survivors' stories through that video. So we partnered with a few different charities with Rape Crisis and Cheer Up Love, and yeah, it felt really amazing to be able to like translate the music into action, I guess.
And this is a complete 180 to the topic. But you've had some wild fan interactions in the past, such as signing their grandparents' ashes or getting underwear with your face on it. Um, but looking back, what's the craziest experience now?
Well, I did go through a long phase of signing fans' boobs, which I was trying to make it a thing that was like I'm this woman who's signing people's boobs, and I'm like asking, making sure they're like not underage, and like look how easy it is to not be creepy. And I feel like, especially my generation, just grew up in an era of like creepy dudes in bands like taking advantage of teenagers, and I was like, let me like rewrite the vibe. So that was kind of fun. And because it was all part of just wanting people to feel safe and free at my shows. Um, and yeah, so that was fun. That was kind of a fun way of rewriting that narrative. But I'd say honestly, the the urn with someone's grandma's ashes in it is still up there as the craziest, the craziest thing I've ever signed. I was not expecting that at the merch table.
You've been posting for 77 days videos of yourself trying to convince people to pre-save, like pre-buy the album so that you can get on the charts. How far are we from the goal?
Yeah, so we are, I think we're a third of the way. And there's about 6 weeks left. Yeah, I kind of just was like, I'm gonna embrace the cringe and I'm gonna pester people every day. And it's honestly been quite a fun way of connecting with my fans. And um for me, I like really enjoy having a clear goal. So that hyperfixation has been kind of fun. And yeah, people have been getting behind it. It's been so sweet. So like heartwarming to see people, especially in this economy, spending money on music. Physical music is really cool.
Time for questions. We got plenty of time. So first, Yankee from Surge.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Um, Completely unrelated. I just want to say I love the wallpaper. That's a really cool background.
It's honestly unhinged. This is what happens in my brain.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Well, move on to some of the things I've prepared now. In terms of your live performances, do you have any pre-performance rituals or habits to help yourself get in the right headspace before you get up on stage?
Yeah, I'm the least rock and roll artist ever. So I have some friends who will do like a tequila shot before they go on stage. I do a ginger shot before I go on stage, and I make my whole band we take a kneel and we like raise up our ginger shots into the center and we like toast to having a good show and great immunity. So yeah, that's the vibe.
As long as you're healthy.
Exactly.
And I believe you worked on a report with Youth Music called Just the Way It Is that came out recently. What advice would you have for young musicians based on what you found in that report?
Yeah, I would say the main takeaway from that report was that there are so many people in the music industry who are unfortunately so ready to take advantage of people, young people who are, I guess, naive about, what it takes to make it. And there's so many people, and I've had so many experiences in my career as well with people who aren't there for your best interests. And um, I'd say always, if for something doesn't feel right, then you then go with your gut, like ask for advice from people. Um, and I'd say also make sure that, I mean, just in like a safety aspect, make sure that, you're not going to a studio in the middle of nowhere with someone you've never met before. And if like your safety is important and your art is important, and also don't feel like you need to do things that you don't necessarily want to because that's just the way it is. Literally, the report is called that. I think that hopefully, especially with this generation, we're seeing that like setting boundaries and achieving success don't need to be in spite of each other. I think it's really important that young people understand their worth and that they deserve to feel safe and they deserve to be appreciated and paid well and have things communicated to them. And even though it's a an industry that doesn't really have like an HR department, it's still so important. Professionalism is so important and respect and is really important. So um yeah.
That's great, and of course, it's all good giving advice to the victims to try and help avoid situations. But at the end of the day, those responsible are the ones in the music industry. So, in your opinion, what do you think is the first step to move past those issues on a systemic level?
I think it's about representation in positions of power. I mean, I think that's always the root cause, is making sure that, there is a really wide range of people in these positions and that it's not just all at how it is at the moment, like a tiny, like representation of real people and people in the industry. At the moment, it's just all older white men. And, it needs to be way more diverse, needs to be more gender diverse, racially diverse, age diverse. Like, I think until those boardrooms and those, people making decisions are full of a mix of people, it's just gonna it's not gonna benefit everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Get some questions from Aiden from scratch, but he lost his voice, sadly.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aidan.
Uh, would you rather I read them out loud or should I pop them in the chat and you can read
Yeah, just put them
them?
in the chat. I can
Okay.
read them.
Okay. So first one is this.
Cool. Is representing minorities from the LGBTQ community and from less advantaged backgrounds something you're passionate about in your music? Um, yeah, like I mean, I've always just wanted to write about things that apply to me, and so I'm a woman and I'm queer, so I write about things that, I guess initially I would just write about things that were relevant to me and my own stories, and then I suppose I realized, after a few years of releasing music like that, realizing like sharing those stories is can be really impactful for people. And I think definitely using my music as a way to make people feel represented and less alone, but also just using my platform to represent and support, people in all kinds of ways. I mean, I'm definitely, I think it's really important for anyone who has a platform to recognize their own privilege and help support and lift up, other groups who are struggling. And I think my fans, the kind of people I've connected with through either people find my music or finding my just presence, I guess, online, because I do share a lot of sort of political content. People might find that before they actually realize I make music as well. I think through that audience I've built, it's also in a good way, I think, kind of built like what's the word? What's the way to say this? Like it's built up a rapport with those people where it's like I recognize the responsibility I have with a platform like that. And yeah, I'm super passionate about it. I mean, I've always been passionate about activism and, like just making the world a better place since I was really young. So music and that kind of combine.
And then,
How has your music and life changed since you started in your career, or has nothing really changed? Do you still hold the same sort of viewpoints about society? Oh my gosh, no, everything's changed. I feel like I'm so much more bitter about the world. Not in a that like actually that sounds really really bad. I feel like certain parts of me have become more like hardened, and then certain parts of me feel so much lighter. I think definitely, I mean, I'm 28 and I started releasing music when I was 18, and I think um my world view on, I guess, just what is important. I mean, also the world has entirely changed in the last decade, with TikTok. I mean, completely changed the whole music industry and how we just generally, how social media, how we interact with it, and how it makes us feel and our attention spans. And so I think, yeah, I think my music and life has completely changed, but also I feel like the central parts that make me girly have kind of remained. Like I always wanted to make music that had something to say, was opinionated, which is funny because my album's called It's Just My Opinion. And I always wanted to perform, and I'm doing that. So I think, yeah, it's kind of like everything and nothing has changed, basically.
and lastly, um, okay, sorry, I didn't copy it this time. I'll just ask it. How much are you looking forward to touring all the records tours from the end of April and then to the US?
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I think also because I've been banging on about it every day on online, being like, buy my album, come to my record store shows. I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's gonna come a time in a month where I'm actually being able to say that to people's faces instead of just filming it on my camera in my room. Um, I mean, I love playing shows. That's my favorite part of being a musical artist, and my fans are just the cutest. And this really special thing about record store shows is that they're so small, they're so intimate, and you get to really just the show is so much more interactive in that way. And I have some really fun things planned for these shows. We're doing like half of the set will be acoustic interpretations of the songs, and I'll be playing mostly songs from the new album. But then also we're doing like a karaoke segment where fans will basically sing my songs like it's a karaoke bar. And I'm doing that for my like biggest songs, the ones that fans will really know the lyrics to. So yeah, it'll be so fun. I'm really stoked. And then after that, I'm going to the US to play shows, which I love playing in America. I mean, America feels like a really kind of nutty place to go at the moment. But I think before I put out my tour dates, I took a long time to think about it, and I feel like for me as a political artist, there was definitely a fear of what am I doing going somewhere where they're really not liking people being outspoken and political right now. But I think that's kind of why it felt more important than ever to do that was because community and standing up for what you believe in is the most important in times like that. So yeah, I'm really excited about the US shows as well.
Now we got a couple of questions from 1 second. Corey from Pure. They sound a bit more rapid fire. So if we can go a bit more quickly, just because I want to get through everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So my first question for you, Girly, since you have quite an established following now, what are your thoughts on platforms like Spotify, where I'm sure we all use Spotify, or a lot of us on this Q&A, we've all got playlists and whatever, but they don't necessarily pay that much. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, it's kind of like the worst um dilemma for I think any artist is I feel like unless you're the level of Taylor Swift and you can afford to just take all your music off a platform, which I know she did for a while, you're kind of you're kind of stuck with this like necessary evil. I mean, for me, um I am so against so much of what Spotify does and what they invest in and the way they don't pay artists enough. And at the same time, Spotify playlists are how so much of my fan base has discovered me. And, even though they don't pay enough, the money that I get from Spotify, keeps is how I make a lot of my living. So it's this weird, yeah, necessary evil in a way. And I really hope that in the coming years there'll be more alternatives that pop up so that Spotify has less of a monopoly. Um, but it's honestly such a bummer having to, you know, still use that and promote my music through that platform.
And you were saying before about advice that you'd give to musicians, and you were talking about the report and everything that came out. If you don't mind me asking, is there any bad advice or any scams that you're aware of that you would encourage young artists to avoid?
I think definitely trying as best you can to reject hustle culture um, is the biggest one I'd say. I feel like I've spent so much of my career feeling like if I'm not working 24/7 and grinding myself into the ground and getting no sleep and, working harder than anyone else, then I'm not going to get what I want. And I just feel like that's such a toxic and unsustainable approach. I feel like self-care is so important and making sure that you celebrate the wins, even if they're small, and making sure that you understand that your contribution and your art is worthy, regardless of numbers or and like the comparison thing, that is such a trap that social media makes it so difficult. But just remembering that your art is important and you really life is important too. Like go out and whoopsie, go out and live it. Yeah.
If we push for time, I'm happy to move on to the next person if you like, Alexia.
I do like this question though. Can we make
Okay.
it like a fast, like a rapid fire?
Yeah, okay, fine. I was going to say, if you had your own music festival, a bit like Ozzy Osbourne, let's say you had Girly Fest, as you are an openly LGBT artist, if you could include, let's say, two artists to join your lineup with you that were LGBT, who would they be?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. There's this artist called Devon again, who's amazing. Love her. She'd definitely be on there. And I'm biased because she's my girlfriend, but her music is also so slay. Um, Dirt Flirt is a really amazing artist. And yeah, those would be two I'd pick.
Great stage name as well, Dirt Flirt.
So good.
Alrighty, thank
No,
you.
Thank you.
thank you, Corey. Now I got Tom from Canada.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. On your new album, It's Just My Opinion, what is your favorite song you've currently made from the track list that's currently here?
I would say Slap on the Wrist is my favorite. Just because it is so so passionately political and I feel like it like really encapsulates the my love of combining activism and important messaging in songwriting as well.
Okay. And from the album, do you have like a specific lyric that you have written? that you'd wish you'd been able to like listen to again as a listener itself?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. Um, the song that I just released is called Squirm. There's a lyric where it says, I go all shy, it's disgusting. And yeah, I kind of that would be cool to listen to as a listener because I really like that lyric.
Well, okay. Oh wait, I go shy is disgusting. What's like, is there any significance towards that, or is that just like a relatability kind of feel?
Yeah, it's just the whole song is about having a crush on someone that's uncomfortable. Instead of it being like, oh my God, this is such a nice feeling, it being like, oh, ew, I hate this. Like this actually is so, I feel so vulnerable and it's disgusting. And the idea of squirm and I'm using loads of the worm emoji when I'm promoting it. The vibe is like kind of like a disgusting crush. When you just kind of it grosses you out how much you like someone, basically.
All right. Wow, that hit really real. God. Final question I have. Do you have any dream collaborations you'd like to produce any sort of music with? And by the way, I'm gonna exclude the use of your girlfriend dirt flirt just because I know that's cheating.
Um, that's so valid. I would love to collaborate with Amel and the Sniffers. They're so cool. I love her. She's such an icon, and I don't know, I just feel like that would be so fun.
That are they like indie rock or
Yeah, they're like super, they're like punk, but I just love, yeah, I love her energy.
oh, that's so cool. All right, well, that's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Now we got Lynn from the Boar.
Hi, nice to meet you. I was wondering that as an artist who's covered multiple genres from pop to punk rock, how do you know when a feeling will fit into more of a pop song or a punk rock anthem, etc.?
Oh, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think when I think about melodic ideas, like ignoring lyrics, I think melody can just so easily fit into any genre, really. And I think that's kind of demonstrated when you see, you know, pop artists covering rock songs or punk artists covering R&B songs, or, when you see like a version on Triple J or you see it in the live lounge. And I think that's what's so amazing about melody. It kind of traverses genre. And I think it's quite similar with lyrics, and I think that's kind of why, in a way, I enjoy sonically kind of trying out loads of things. I think I find it hard to stick to one thing because for me, I'm the thing that kind of trademarks it as a girly song, I think, is the lyrics and my voice, I guess. And then, I really enjoy messing around with what genre it is.
In your videos on your Instagram when you were uploading like the Day 31s and making my album, you mentioned that Pedestal was written before you realized you're even making an album. So I was wondering, how do you decide whether those songs you've written previously will make it into this album?
Yeah, I mean, I think with most albums before this one, I was just randomly writing songs, and then it would sort of be like, oh, the album would come together like a playlist where you're like, oh, these are a bunch of songs I've written. Let's smash them into an album. And I think this album, I think I wrote one or two songs, and then I was like, stop. I want to write this consciously as a project. And so I set out to, in a time frame of a few months, write an album, which I've kind of never done it like that before, because I wanted there to be a bit more cohesion and a little bit more of like an intention with it, which was a really fun way to do it.
My last question is that in an interview with Hunger Mag, you mentioned that you wanted to become a novelist before pursuing music. So I was wondering that were there any books that you were reading during the making of this album that may have inspired some of the songs or the overall sound of the album?
Yeah, I was writing, sorry, I was reading a bunch of, I'm kind of still on that vibe. I was reading a bunch about the witch trials in Scotland in the 17th century, which I think was definitely fueling a lot of rage, a lot of feminine rage I was experiencing. And I guess because it's just like a perfect example of how misogyny is hundreds and hundreds of years old and just in different forms still permeates society. So I think, yeah, I'm really into history. So a lot of historical, like nonfiction, women's nonfiction I was reading. Um, and then, oh my gosh, what else? Yeah, I think that was the main thing. Oh, and I was reading, I love Sarah Waters, and she is a gay fiction writer, and she writes again, it's very like historical queer fiction, but it's fiction. But I was really enjoying a lot of that stuff as well. So yeah,
That's really interesting. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
thank you.
Great. Now we got Kitty from KCL Radio.
Hi.
I want to say I love the new singles, Squirm,
Thank
such a
you.
banger.
Thank you.
Um, you have expressed how the beginning of the writing process for a new project is normally the most difficult because it makes you kind of question your artistry and your, persona, if you as you've described it. Is that persona sometimes something you feel that just comes when you're on stage, or is it a thing that you have to inhabit while you're in the writing process for a new album?
Yeah, I think I've spoken to a lot of artist friends about this too, and I think it's kind of a universally felt thing where when you've just finished releasing and touring an album, and for my last album, I was touring for like a year before it came out, and then I was touring for a year after, and so that was kind of the whole era of that album. And then there's this period of time after that where you come back home and you're like, cool, I'm having an existential crisis. Who am I? And I think that's kind of like a necessary um yeah, portal into whatever you end up making next. But I think it definitely is uncomfortable, and I think it sort of happens without you really realizing it. I definitely can't relate to artists who just exactly know how everything is going to look and sound and feel. I really admire being able to do that, but I think it's just something you sort of figure out as you go along. And with this album, I wanted to do more, have more of a vibe of I don't need to become someone else when I'm on stage, or I just want it to all feel super authentic, and I just want to be the same person on stage as I was when I was in the studio writing and when I'm just like at home filming these videos. And so I kind of wanted all of them to tie in a bit more rather than be like an alter ego.
For sure. Do you think there's kind of more of a pressure on female artists to, have a new brand prepared for each new era and completely switch up their look? Do you feel that pressure
Oh
when
my
you're...
God. Yeah, massively. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and I was like, isn't Ed Sheeran in his like 15th year of playing shows in the same t-shirt and jeans? Like,
Really?
no hate. That's his brand, and he absolutely slays it. But I just feel like that would just not be allowed for I feel like a woman would get dragged and told that she's not putting in enough effort if if she didn't constantly reinvent herself. And yeah, I definitely feel that pressure. Um, I think sometimes I genuinely want to and feel ready to transition into something that feels different. But yeah, I've also felt the pressure to, okay, gosh, I now need to completely reinvent everything.
Mm. Yeah, after having like kind of having to stay the same for like the whole cycle of album promotion. That's really
Yeah.
cool. You mentioned in this interview that you decided to embrace the cringe for this cycle of album promotion. Do you find that, side of social media, which is so necessary now for selling an album, do you feel it's positive and beneficial to your artistry, or is it something that you kind of have a negative relationship with?
I definitely had to develop a more positive relationship with it because it is, I mean, I would call it a necessary evil. I don't
Mhm.
love it. It's one of those things where I've found most of my fan base through social media, and there was a period of my career where I was without a label, and I was just on my own, and social media was the reason I could keep promoting my music and building a fan base. So it gives you a lot more independence as an artist, but it can be a real pressure, and it can be really hard when, especially as like a queer woman making political music, the algorithms, which are designed by, I mean, basically all of social media is owned now by like Trump funders. So it's
Mm.
difficult because the algorithms can sometimes be so against you, and you're sort of at
Yeah.
the mercy of that. So it's good and bad.
Yeah. It's like you're trying to be ethical in an unethical space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was it for my questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And lastly, we got Libby from Burn.
Hi.
Hi, yeah, thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah,
My
of
main
course.
question was, with your kind of songwriting process, do you kind of sit down and think, I'm gonna write a song, or does it kind of come to you as you go? And kind of with that, obviously, like you touch on kind of social, political issues, but also like personal vulnerability. Does that kind of like come to you as you go about your day-to-day life, or does it feel kind of painful, cathartic to write about that? Like, what's your feelings on the whole process?
Yeah, I feel like I've always written things, whether it's like poems or short stories or songs, because it feels cathartic. I think it just feels like a natural thing I reach for when there's a lot going on in my head. So I'd say I get ideas for songs all the time. And I might get little lyric ideas and I'll write them down, and I might hear like a musical motif or drum beat or something, and I'll record it, or I'll earmark, um earmark, is that a word? Bookmark a song for later. And I think, yeah, for me, I prefer to be then in a sort of like neutral space, like in the studio, to then be like, cool, I'm going to bring all these ideas in and make something. Um, but I'll always be kind of writing ideas down as I go. But I usually have to go in with a clear goal of, cool, today I'm going to write about this, and this is kind of what I want it to sound like, and then we sort of go from there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of like leading on from that. Obviously, we've spoken about kind of how TikTok and like the digital age has changed, like the music space and songwriting. Um, but and obviously, since because of that, a lot of venues and places where like up and coming artists can perform their music have like shut down. Was there any venues when you first started out that were really important to you, like maybe around London or where you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up not far from Camden, so which has always been like an amazing hub for music, and especially sort of indie alternative music. And there were so many venues around there, and quite a few of them have shut down. I can't remember. I think there was one called the Monarch, which is shut down now, where I used to do loads of like open mics and stuff. I mean, that whole area was really inspiring, and there were so many opportunities to play live. And it's sad, I mean, to see how London has been gentrified so much, and especially just music venues in general have been shutting down. And it's harder, I think. It's harder to just play random shows. So yeah, it is a shame.
Yeah, I guess because now it's more people making music to sell music as opposed to just kind of share the artistry. But I feel that yeah, it's really nice that you had a good kind of creative space to like launch your career. But yeah, those are both my questions, so thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Girly, for joining us. We're so excited for the new album coming out
Oh, thank you so
May
much.
8th and for the in-store performances.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. They were all such good questions. Thank you. I appreciate it.